Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to look at how we can add a bit of resilience and auto-scaling. Then we're going to go through and hopefully test our highly available WordPress site. So first of all, I just want to show you a network diagram. This is what it's going to look like. This is what we're going to do. This IP address is just the IP address of our current EC2 instance. Yours will probably obviously be different. And this is going to be our writer node. So every time our marketing team wants to go and write a new blog article for our WordPress site, they're going to navigate directly to this IP address. This EC2 instance will then be configured to push any changes to S3. And then we're going to have a fleet of EC2 instances here, and their job is to constantly just poll the S3 bucket looking for changes. And when people visit our domain, hellocloudgurus2019.com, Route 53 is going to send them over to this group of EC2 instances. It's going to send it over to this fleet. It's not going to send it to our writer nodes, so it's just going to send it to our read nodes only. So let's go in and set this up now. Okay, so I'm in my var www.html directory on my EC2 instance, and I just need to go over to my etc directory, and then what I want to do is I want to edit a file. The file is called crontab. So just type in nano crontab. And crontab is essentially like scheduled tasks for Windows. It's a way of running commands at a particular, basically every minute or every hour or every day or every month or every day of the week, etc., etc. So with this EC2 instance, what we're going to do is we're going to take a snapshot of it. And this is going to be our base image for our EC2 instances that are going to be reader nodes. So this is going to be the WordPress site that's going to be behind an application load balancer that's going to be behind Route 53 on our domain name. So this will be reader nodes only. And so what does a reader node want to do? Well, essentially it just wants to scan S3. And we're going to do it every minute, and we're going to look for any changes to our WordPress site. And if there is a change, it's going to download that change to this EC2 instance. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a star. So we want this command to run every minute, and then we want 4 more stars. So we want it to run every minute of every hour of every day of the month of every day of the week, and we want it to run at root level. So what's the command that it's going to run? Well, it's going to run an AWS command. We're going to be using S3, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be syncing to S3. And we want this to be a perfect copy. So we want to delete any files off our EC2 instance that aren't in our bucket. So we always want this to be a perfect copy of our bucket. And so then what are we going to sync? Well, we're going to sync our S3 bucket. And if you can't remember the name, just head over to the console, head over to S3, and you'll be able to see it in here. So mine was called A Cloud Guru WordPress code. And you can copy that into your clipboard up here. So I'm going to paste that in here. And where do we want to sync it to? Well, we want to sync it to our var www.html directory. And that's all that command does. So it's going to look for any changes in S3, and then it's going to go ahead and essentially download those changes. If we've deleted files in S3, it'll also delete the files from our EC2 instance. That's the sync command, and that's why we use the delete marker. So let's go ahead and hit Control X. If you want to save, just hit yes. So yes, and then hit enter, and that has saved your cron tab. So it is going to run this command every single minute. If you are really, really impatient and you want this to start up straight away, you can just do it by doing service cron D and then restart. As soon as you restart the cron service, it will automatically just basically run all the commands. So what we want to do now is just go ahead and test this. So I'm back in S3. I'm going to go into my code. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just upload a file to S3. I'm going to add this file, and I'm just going to add hello.txt. This is just a txt file that says hello Cloud Gurus. So I'm going to go ahead and hit open, and we're going to go ahead and hit upload. So that has now successfully uploaded. If I just alt tab back over here, again, I could be really super impatient and just restart the service. And then I could go over to my var www.html directory, and then if we type in ls, hopefully we'll be able to see it, and there it is, hello.txt. And if we cat our hello.txt, and it's case sensitive, so if we cat hello.txt and hit enter, we'll be able to see that it says hello Cloud Gurus. So that is now working. Now that this is working, we want to create an Amazon machine image, because this is going to be our golden template or our gold boot image for our WordPress servers in our auto-scaling groups. So back in EC2, what we want to do is just go over to our running instance. Let's go ahead and go to actions, and let's go ahead and do image. And we're going to go ahead and create an image of this. And the image name is, this is going to be my WordPress, and then we'll call it read node. And the image description is, this is the default read node for WP, for WordPress. And we're going to just put this on general purpose SSD. And let's go ahead and create our image. So that is now creating our image. Now doing that, it will reboot your EC2 instance. If you actually just go back over to your SSH window, you'll be able to see that it's been terminated. There was a no reboot option. I probably should have ticked it, but I didn't. So I'm just going to wait for this EC2 instance to come back up. Okay, so let's go over and click on our AMIs, and hopefully we will see our AMI in there. It took a couple of minutes, but it is definitely there. And we can use this AMI in our auto-scaling groups. Now, before we go and create our auto-scaling groups, let's just go back over to our EC2 instance. So I'm just going to SSH into my EC2 instance, and it is now connected. I'm going to elevate my privileges to root. I'm going to go over to my etc directory, and I'm just going to clear the screen, and I'm going to nano my cron tab. And what we're going to do, because we've got our reader nodes now, what we want to do is go ahead and change this command, because this is now going to be our write node. And essentially all we're doing is reversing it. So instead of saying delete, here what we're going to say is var html. So essentially what we are doing is we want to sync our var html to our S3 bucket. And then we'll go through and delete this at the end. So I'm just going to go in and delete this at the end. So we need to run one more command, and what this command will do is sync to our other S3 bucket, because we want it so that if any images are uploaded to this EC2 instance, it's going to be distributed throughout CloudFront as well. So we're going to do this every minute, going to do this of every day, of every month, whatever, etc., etc. And we're going to do it at root, and we're going to run the command AWS S3 and then sync. And we want to use the delete marker as well. And then we're going to do the var html and then /wp -content and then /uploads. And then in terms of the S3 bucket, it's S3 and then a cloud guru WP and then -media and then -rjk19. So make sure you get the bucket names right, because otherwise this isn't going to work. It is also useful to go in and just test that the files have been uploaded to your buckets. So go ahead and save, and then go ahead and exit. Then if we go over to our var html directory, let's just type echo. This is a test, and we're going to output that to test.txt. So that has now outputted it. Again, if you want to be really super impatient, just restart the cron-d service. So service cron-d restart. And because we have done a reboot, you may just want to check your HTTPD service, and we'll check that it has actually come back up. So we'll do HTTPD and then status. And hopefully, yeah, so that is definitely still on. So let's go back over to S3 and see if our test.txt has been sent to our S3 bucket. So I'm back in the AWS Management Console. If we just go over to Services and click on S3 and just go into the buckets, I'm going to go into my code bucket, and there we go. We can see my test.txt. Now I did do this yesterday, and I went straight in there and it didn't appear. And I thought to myself, what's going on? And it's actually just eventual consistency. I just had to hit refresh probably like a minute later, and it was there. So if you go in and you can't see the file, like just go away for 1 or 2 minutes and come back and then just refresh it. You should be able to see it. So just a reminder of the architecture of our site. We wanted to have one write node, and this would be basically a single EC2 instance that our bloggers would go on and create articles for. And that's what our EC2 instance is right now. And the reason it's that one is because the cron command that we just set up is taking its local copy, so it's all the local assets on that, and it's pushing it and syncing it to S3 every minute. So if somebody goes into this EC2 instance and they do a new blog, that will automatically be pushed out to S3 within a minute. Now this you probably wouldn't want to put behind you could put it behind a domain name, but you might want to put it behind write.hellocloudgurus2019.com. You definitely don't want the general public trying to access this EC2 instance. You want to keep this as your master writer node. Then what we did before with the first cron tab that we set up, or cron job that we set up, we're actually getting our EC2 instance to pull files down from S3. And then we took took an AMI of that EC2 instance. So that's the AMI that we're now going to use to build out this part of our website. We're going to use that AMI and put it into an autoscaling group, and that autoscaling group is going to sit behind our application load balancer. And then when people go and visit our website, Route 53 is going to send them to our application load balancer, and then it's going to go on to our EC2 instances that are behind that. And those EC2 instances will be polling S3 every minute, trying to download a local copy of their file. So let's go ahead and set that up now. Okay, so we're back in the AWS console. Let's go over to EC2. And we're going to go ahead and create a launch configuration group, and then followed by an auto-scaling group. So you can go down here. Let's go down to auto-scaling groups. If you do try and create an auto-scaling group first, it will prompt you to go and do a launch configuration. So we go in here, create, and in here it says create an auto-scaling group. So we're going to use a launch configuration, and we're going to use a new launch configuration. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. We're going to use our My AMIs, so click over here, and then you can see here My WordPress Read Node. So let's go ahead and select that, and then we're going to just use the T2 micro. In terms of our launch configuration, we're just going to call this My WordPress Launch Configuration. IAM role, you are going to need S3 access. It's critical because obviously it's going to be downloading the code from S3. In our advanced details in here, we could pass it a bootstrap script. So this is going to be our bootstrap script. It's available in the resources section of the course. You'll need to change this to be your bucket name, but essentially all it's doing is it's syncing and using the delete marker, and it's going to sync S3 to your var www.html directory. So as soon as your EC2 instances are launched in an auto-scaling group, it's going to run a yum update, and then it's going to download the latest copy of your S3 bucket. So I've pasted that into the bootstrap script. IP address, just say leave it as default. We are doing this into our default VPC. Go ahead and add your storage. We just need an 8 gig general purpose SSD. In terms of the security group, choose your WebDMZ security group, hit review. And now we're ready to create our launch configuration. So we're just going to be using a T2 micro. We're using our AMI, and it's going to be deployed into our WebDMZ. So next, let's go through, and what we're going to do is we're going to create our auto-scaling group. So our auto-scaling group, let's call this My WordPress Reader Nodes. So something like that, keep it simple. We're going to start with 2 instances. It's totally up to you as to how many that you want. I'm going to do 2. In terms of our network, we're going to use our default VPC. Subnets, just select all the subnets in here because you want it spread across as many availability zones as possible. In here, we're going to say receive traffic for one or more load balancers. So you can either choose your classic load balancers or your target group. We're going to use this one, so My WordPress Instances. The health check, are we going to do an ELB health check or an EC2 health check? I'm going to choose an ELB health check. So our ELB will go through and be able to monitor this. Your health check grace period, it's totally up to you what you're going to do for this. I'm going to choose 60 seconds so it updates quite a bit quicker. And then everything else I'm going to leave as default, and I'm going to go ahead and configure our scaling policies. So we can keep this group at its initial size, or we can use scaling policies to adjust the capacity of this group. We could do that and go in and start running commands to max out the CPU, but I'm sure you get the point. You can now, you can auto scale based on CPU utilization, etc. So I'm just going to leave it at keep initial size. I don't want to really add any notifications because they get quite annoying. So the name, we'll call it My WordPress and then Reader Nodes. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit review. And so we're going to keep the group at 2, minimum group size 2, maximum group size 2, and we can change all of this later. So let's go ahead and create our auto scaling group. And we're going to go ahead and hit close. Now what we probably want to do is go over to our target groups and take our right node out of that target group. The reason for that is we don't really want it to be getting read traffic, and we've already connected up our hellocloudgurus.com address to Route 53. So let's go in and go to our targets and go edit. And we're just going to remove this one from the group. So I'm going to remove it from the registered target and go ahead and hit save. Now if we go over to EC2 dashboard, we should be able to see some instances. Right now we've got one that's online and we've got another one that's coming up online. And you'll see the two new ones because they're initializing. They are in different availability zones, but our writer node, annoyingly, is in the same availability zone as one of our reader nodes. You may want to put this in its own auto-scaling group if you wanted to do something like that, but I'm going to keep it simple. And in here we can see the names now. So anything that says my WordPress RN is our reader nodes, and my golden image, you might just want to change this to the my WordPress and then write node, there we go. And so now it's very easy to see the difference between our reader nodes and our writer nodes. So I'm just going to pause the video. I'm going to wait for all of this to come back up, and then we should be able to go over and browse our website. Okay, so these are up and running now. Let's just go over to our target groups and we'll have a look at our registered targets. So we've got our 2 registered targets in here and their status is coming back as healthy. So I guess the next thing to do is to go over to our domain. Okay, so I'm going to go to hellocloudgurus2019.com. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And there we go, we can see that it is loaded. So it is going to those 2 reader nodes now. What we can do is if we just go to / and then wp-admin, we can actually go in and log in. That will allow us to then log in, and if you just enter your password, so mine was acloudguru. Okay, I've logged in now, and I'm actually logging in. If you look at the domain, I'm logging into my write node. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and add a new post. And we're going to add new. I'm just going to call it, this is a test cloud gurus. And then in here, we're going to write testing. And then in here, I might want to add a picture. So I'm going to upload a picture. And I'm going to choose this one. So this is AWS This Week. So this is me and Faye. We have a weekly TV show called AWS This Week. Now see, straight away we've uploaded it and it looks like it's having an issue. And what's happening is the URL rewrite is writing to CloudFront automatically, but it's going to take some time for this image to propagate through CloudFront. It might take up to 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and just publish this post and go ahead and hit publish. And then what I'm going to do, I'm honestly going to go away and make myself a cup of coffee, and I'm going to wait exactly 10 minutes and come back and then do a refresh. And you've got to be patient with CloudFront and DNS propagation. It can just take time. So I'm going to just pause the video now. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh the page. And there we go, there's the image coming out of CloudFront. And you can go ahead and view the post. You'll be able to see it there. And then if we go back to hellocloudgurus2019.com, we can see our new post there. If we grab this image address and paste it into a clipboard, you'll see it is definitely being URL rewritten to our CloudFront distribution. So we now have a very highly available and fault-tolerant website. Let's go ahead and start testing how highly available it is. So I'm back in the AWS Management Console. Let's go over to EC2. And the first thing we're going to simulate is the loss of an availability zone. And we'll do it of 1C. And I'm going to go over to my actions, instance state, and I'm going to go ahead and hit terminate and hit terminate. So we've just lost US West 1C. I'm going to pause and wait for this to actually show as terminated. As soon as it's terminated, it's going to start failing the health check. So let's just pause the video here. Okay, that has now terminated. So we can see it's in a terminated state. If we go down to our Elastic Load Balancers and go to our target groups, we'll be able to see in our targets that we've only now got 1 registered target. If we click on our health checks, you can see the reason why. It's because it's not able to reach that healthy.html. And if we go back here and refresh our page, we may get some latency, but it was like half a second, if that. So it is still serving our content, even though we've lost 1 availability zone. If we go back to EC2, it may take some time for autoscaling to figure this out. In fact, if you actually just go over to your autoscaling groups, you should be able to look at the events, the activity history. And in here, we can see that it just has detected that something has terminated and is now bringing up another EC2 instance. If we go over here and have a look, we now have 3 running instances. And we've got a new read node, which is initializing, and it is in a completely new availability zone, EU West 1A. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the video and wait for this EC2 instance to come into service. And the way we can test that is just by going over to our target groups and seeing that this has been added to our new target. In fact, it's already been added. Let's just go over and refresh the page and make sure we're getting the latest version. And we definitely are getting the latest version because we created this post after we took our AMI. So our AMI has already been deployed and it's gone to S3 and it's downloaded this asset. So we definitely have now a self-healing WordPress site. Okay, so we're almost at the end of 20 minutes. I appreciate you're probably tired, so go have a break. In the next lecture, what we'll do is we'll just test RDS failing over from one availability zone to another. And then what we'll do is we'll go in and delete the rest of our environment. So if you've got the time, please join me in the next lecture. Thank you.